of them rape. I see corruption deep. But only people them out. Every day appear arms out. Appear money them a thief. And them a sell out the beach. Can't for me again. You can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy Kenyan, we can't buy time. You can't for me again. Can't for me again. You can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't for me again. Setting up all the charities and all of the givers. Some are like say them powerful, we know make a bigger. The urgent the promises do not them not deliver. Cut up the youth and rough and they don't in a whatever. Them a bold money and they lie them. Corruption smell and they pocket them spell. When police do a market like Satan out of hell go mash up people start and thief when them spell. It gun me. What them to the market man? It gun me. What them a treat the cat man? It gun me. What them to the peanut man? It gun me. What them a treat the dirt man? It gun me. Whatever treat this on man, whatever treat policeman, all them a treat soldier man.
Stibbidim day, stibbidim day, stibbidim day. We in Global TV says certain kind of friend we no cape, and some informer friend we love Lake. We in Global, bona fake friend and bona tape. We in Global, we not promote them, we not support them. Look at them on the cheek, come here represent for. We in Global TV, check it.
Good evening, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Sorry. Good evening. Welcome to The Haze Politics. It's your global television group, and yes, it is indeed the people's point of view. This evening, we're doing a bit of read and quarrel. Read and quarrel this evening. Good evening to everyone. How are you all doing? How was your day? Good evening to my community of party and all my family members. Good evening to my moderators and platform membership holders. Good evening, commenters, viewers, and live chatters. After commenters, good evening all. And welcome. Thank you all for joining us. If you are not someone who watches the live but watches the after recording, thank you for being a part of the Global Television Group family. Thank you for your support to the program. We appreciate your viewership and your debate in the comments after the live. Thank you all very much, specifically to those who watches and chat in the afterlife comment. Thank you. My system is giving me problem loading videos into my library. But I see Mr. Green started doing some road work in my community. I would encourage you, Mr. Green, to go the whole hog and just give the community good road, because you know the dust from the bad road creates a lot of health problems in our community. The bad road also create a lot of extra expense for drivers who have to buy front-end parts ever so often because of the terrible state of the road. So on one hand, thank you, but on the other hand, we're expecting more. And we still want back with pump, up a pump house, where Christoph and Tifa go sell. Yeah, we can supply the whole of St. Elizabeth water. If you bring back that pump to Springhead, we won't have any water problem in St. Elizabeth. You can irrigate and supply the whole of St. Elizabeth with high water pressure. Just Found down at Springhead. Good evening, all, and welcome. Real sweet. Good evening, Debbie Jarvis. Good evening and welcome. Thank you all for joining us. Patricia Matthews, good evening. Marcia Esty, good evening. Good evening, Natalia Freeman. Good evening and welcome, Gloria Morris. Good evening, Anthony R. Good evening. Good evening, good evening. JP, good evening. Sunshine, good evening and welcome. Georgia Dennis, good evening. Marcia Wills, Monica Wills, good evening. Juliet Shakes, good evening. Miranda Ruddock, good evening. Pamela Acola, Jamaican foodie, good evening all and welcome. Daniel Taylor, good evening and welcome. Rose, good evening. Good evening, JC. Ladybug, good evening. Tash, good evening. Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Navlet Blake, good evening. Nicola Walker Redeem, good evening. Brenda Raddock out here. Good evening all and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Cousin Jamie Beaton Teach, Sim. Good evening all and welcome. Joan Sinclair, good evening and welcome. We don't have to ask anymore if Labour government have shame. It's established long time now. But does the Central Executive and the entire Jamaica Labour Party, Springhead is in my community of Parity. It's in a community called Little Bridge. That's where you would find Springhead. And it sits in the middle of a river called Carsey River. It sits on the bank of a river called Carsey River. Mavis Gooden, how are you? This decade's politics coming from the entire Jamaica Labour Party, the stronghold over the Jamaica Labour Party, which has now become a limited corporation to the wholenesses. The hold over the party, Blue Waves, is a part of the slow death to the Jamaica Labour Party. Team Curtis continues to increase. Angela 48349, how are you? Evan Bradford. Members across all sorts of civil society are speaking up. The issue of speaker and clerk is not going anywhere soon. And it is not going to go anywhere. Distant friend, how are you? The deafening, the tone deafness coming from the Jamaica Labour Party. I wonder if they realize how much mileage Donnet Hamilton they are losing across the country with all different members of civil society. The country in general. Annie Jones. The country in general is not having this letter on Mrs. Curtis's file. Does the Labour Party think that plain tone deaf is going to allow the situation to go away? Or does the central executive and the entire Jamaica Labour Party realize how much of a danger this is to the life of the party at the next general election? Loretta Williams, good evening and welcome. James, how are you? Evan Bradford. Does the Jamaica Labour Party realize how damaging this fiasco is now becoming for the party? And is the People's National Party picking up their mileage out of it? Because certainly, since the local government election, morals for the Jamaica Labour Party has been on a downward spiral. One blunder after the other. The issue of the clerk of the house is not going away. Miss Curtis isn't having it. All sorts of members of civil society isn't having it. The People's National Party in their fullness isn't having it. Cousin Myrna, Wagwan cuz, how you do? The People's National Party in its fullness isn't having it. All walks of members of civil society isn't having it. Maxine Cummins. The nation, by and large, isn't having it. What then is so difficult for the Prime Minister who promised on the local government election campaign to listen to us? The Jamaica Labour Party who promised us to listen to us. What are they not hearing from the nation at large with regards to the Speaker of the House and the Clerk of the House? The letter. The letter must be withdrawn, is what everybody's demanding. It is not an ask anymore. It is a demand. It must be done. Short of that, more and more mileage will continue to slip away from the Jamaica Labour Party going into a general election under the watchful eye of the nation for the release of the illicit six. So not to be unable to even apply a band-aid to a gaping wound going forward. Because the gaping wound that the Jamaica Labour Party is at the moment, withdrawing the letter and an apology would be a band-aid and a gaping wound. But that probably, though, would have helped the Jamaica Labour Party to move on from that to somebody else, to something else, Claudette Silvera. To move on to something else. Because ever since this fiasco unfolded, it's a stalemate for the Jamaica Labour Party moving forward. The budget, Paula, the unconstitutionality, the more and more missing money. More we're finding out that we're paying people millions to sit at home who are in breach of their contractual duties and arrangements. Christine Gilbert. This doesn't look good going forward for the Jamaica Labour Party. But if they don't fix this abscess that Juliet Wholeness is at the moment, particularly Juliet Wholeness, if they do not fix this cyst, Janet Ryder, that Juliet Wholeness is, it's going to spread into a nasty cancer for the Jamaica Labour Party. This cyst, this abscess that exists in the Jamaica Labour Party at the moment in the name of Juliet Wholeness is fast turning into a nasty cancer over the Jamaica Labour Party, which will summon the death of the Jamaica Labour Party by the next general election. Kevin Fairclough. With the nation waiting for the release of the illicit six, the nasty showdown between the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. The Jamaica Labour Party is walking into a slow death to the next general election. It's Ladybug. Mark Golden said in his press conference, I think the day of the ruling, in the Paula Llewellyn ruling, Delaware slogan, that it is one of the issues they are looking at taking to the courts as well. So, yes, they can be sued to have that removed to seek clarity if Juliet has jurisdiction to do that. And not just that, because it turned out to be a disciplinary letter. A disciplinary process was never done. So it violates Mrs. Curtis's rights to fair hearing. So therefore, yes, you can you would have to go through the courts though to have it done under the fair hearing, under the breach of her fair hearing rights. But yes, it's something that you can take to the courts. You can sue these people for anything, literally. Look at the Americans. You just step sideways and somebody take it to the court. It's just that members of civil society in Jamaica are afraid to spend their money in challenging the status quo or government, Lillis Lockerbie, but you can take these issues to the court, really. But the deafness of the entire Jamaica Labour Party, because nobody in the Jamaica Labour Party seem to see that Juliet Wholeness has stepped out of line. She has gone beyond her power. Blossom Riley, she did not, even if it is within her jurisdiction, to take Miss Curtis through a disciplinary process. She did not follow due process. That alone is a violation. That alone you can go to court on, because she breached Miss Curtis' rights to fair hearing. Following procedural law is as important as following the law. if you do not follow the correct procedures, as seen in the Vibe Cartel case, beat and teach, well gone, you just come special, good evening. You are going to have your case quashed or thrown out of court because the law laid down step-by-step procedures which you should follow, whether it's a criminal dispute or a civil dispute, Jackie Graham. So short of following those procedures, as seen in the Vibes Cartel case, Precious Allen, which the procedures should have been, you discharge the entire jury and start again. That wasn't done, and that alone have the case, the conviction overturned. So procedural law matters. And in Miss Curtis's case here, Juliet Holness did not follow the correct procedures, if any at all. The letter was done out of hissy fit and personal feelings. It was also done to cast a shadow over Miss Curtis and a deflection from the Speaker of the House, lack of knowledge and mismanagement / corruption in her role. So the letter must be removed. It is not an ask that she should remove it. She must remove it. No matter how long them duck and dive all over the place, they must remove it. Short of removing that, will be remembered through the entire general election campaign, which will be dangerously damaging for the Jamaica Labour Party at the next poll. The JUTC has come on board, and they are calling, I'll respond to you in a bit, Kevin. They are calling for, they're demanding rather, that the letter be withdrawn. The letter of reprimand be withdrawn and apology is to be made to Miss Curtis. Ever since this issue has been unfolding, if you look across the Gleaner's commentary and editorial, a lot of members of civil society have been writing about this issue. A lot of members of civil society is not accepting it. For some weird reason, the Jamaica Labour Party thinks if they ignore all of us at home and in the diaspora, the issue will go away. Sad news for you. It will not go away. It is going to stay until the people's demands are met. Certainly us in social media, journalism and commentary, we're not going to let it die. We're not going to let you get away with it. I think this is one of the issues, Kevin, that of the pending issues that Mark Golden spoke about, that they have, Sasha Lewis, how are you, in the courts. I am convinced this would be one of the issue because Mark Golden and the entire Jamaica Labour Party was highly against it. They voted against it, but because of the JLP voting power within Parliament, they pushed it through, just like they did with the Parler situation that came back at them. So I do believe if Mark Golden has not taken this issue to the courts already, this would be one on their agenda to take into the court to have that done, of those two offices separated, but not only separated, those two offices be removed from the office of the Prime Minister. Those are offices that are meant to operate independent of government. So, Mark Golden, honestly, from where I'm looking, is slow, or if you want to call it laid back, but observantly very methodic. Abena Sarkodi, how are you? What I would want from Mark Golden, or what I would want to see more from Mark Golden, Yvonne Johnson, is using social media. Forget over big yard, forget anti-sus, forget rounded, or forget people business, forget them one where follow back at wedding fractal, Colin Jones, Yvonne Riley, Janet Riley. Forget them what you call mainstream media. What I would want to see Mr. Golden and the People's National Party do is utilize social media much more. Always observing, long time, wagwan. Use up social media much more. Mainstream media not pay attention to you, forget about them. Use social media. It's an election year. Use social media to have a weekly press conference with the people. Georgette Brown, a lot of vloggers, Colleen James, will restream that press conference. Your message will get further out there. That level of communication with the people and updating the people as to the steps and moves that the People's National Party is making, Marcia Thomas, will do an awful lot of good for even raising the momentum of the People's National Party going forward into the general election. The slow death of the Jamaica Labour Party at the moment, given the disrespect to the nation, the nation needs to hear more from the government in waiting. I don't think the momentum that the People's National Party came out of the local government election with and Mark Golden's budget speech, I don't see it improving and continuing. It's like that was just that 9-day wonder. So I would like to see the People's National Party utilize social media much more to get their message across to the nation. as well as I would advise the Jamaica Labour Party to prevent a slow death at the next general election. The issue of the limited corporation or country has become under the wholenesses must be addressed. It wouldn't surprise me, Jackie, if there is going to be, if wholeness is going to be thrown under the bus to save the Jamaica Labour Party at the next election. Tufton will be a contender. Vaz will be a contender. Green will be a contender. I don't know much about the others. Gillette, it is said, will be a contender. Let's see how it goes. But this is also something, Dart White, that I spoke to the Jamaica Labour Party before in the past. I'm going to come to the IRIE FM issue. Spoke about in the past. Violet Watson. I spoke to the Jamaica Labour Party about this in the past. If you don't listen to the nation and fix these issues that are mainly caused by the wholeness regime and the wholeness family, it is a slow death walking into the next general election for the Jamaica Labour Party. Given how it is going for them, as much as I want to see the back of Andrew Holness, what I do not want to see again in our country is an unbalanced power in our parliament the way it is, because that is one of the most dangerous things to a democracy. An unbalanced legislature with a tyrannical leader. It is a very dangerous thing for a democracy. It's a slippery slope where you can slip from democracy to authoritarianism within the snap of a piece of legislation. And I think a lot of signs has come from Andrew Holness that is a very dangerous man. Vivian Hamilton, Rosemary Samuels, to have at the helm of our country, especially under a republic which he is hastily working his way towards. It is a dangerous thing with Andrew Holness on our democracy. But one of the alarming things for me is Jamaicans don't seem to see the danger that the Andrew Holness regime is to our democracy. This is not a Jamaica Labour Party bashing. It's just the reality in front of us. Show me which other government, show me which other leader in our country has had the court ruled against them so many times for you people, constitutional violations. 204 of you on Producer Wayne Global. I only 66 sound like the live. Boy, no can't cheat me bad. Boy, no can't cheat me bad. I bet if me I beg and I speak in a tongues and get in a spirit over here, the whole on down and run and a dipping on a purse like whoa. Hmm? I bet if me I speak tongues and I beg and I tell lie and over here with the theater and the theatrics. Huh? Because of them something they don't love, theaters and theatrics. Because that's all Jamaica Labour Party win pan under wholeness, you know. Optics, theaters and theatrics. Hero Botham, how are you? Hmm? Every night go come as a quarrel over the little likes. Good God Almighty, man. Hmm? But come out here 2-3 times a day. It's just one push when you don't come on the live. Just one push. And every night on a prefer the argument over the little likes. Why not turn bad? Turn very bad. But you can't go on. You can't go on a phone a finger, you can't go on. The Amber IRIE FM issue. I have checked and I have seen nowhere. Megavolt, how are you? I have seen nowhere, and can somebody help me here if they know otherwise, that the government of Jamaica owns or controls IRIE FM. Does anyone know any differently? Does anyone know any differently if the government owns, control, or have shares in IRIE FM? Because I couldn't find such information. Of course, IRIE FM would be subjected to the regular Broadcasting Commission regulations and the regular bureaucracies. Brittany, how are you? Brittany L. Does anyone know, because I wasn't able to find that information, if the government, and we're talking about the Amber issue here at IRIE FM, and the Matty Samuda issue, does anyone know, or is anyone aware if the government has ownership, control, partnership, or shares in IRIE FM? Elaine Turner, how are you? IRIE FM collecting big money to be mouthpiece for the government. Nowhere could I find. Marie, how are you? Nowhere could I find any information that the government owns, control, have shares, or is in partnership with IRIE FM. Therefore, with the Amber issue, I'm not going after the government here. If IRIE FM is not a Jamaica-owned broadcaster, then if IRIE FM head or lead, executive, chairman, or whatever department ponder to an authoritarian request, demand, instruction from the government, a radio station that employs Muta Baruka and Kabu Ma'at, then my problem is not with the government. My problem is with IRIE FM as a broadcaster. My problem is with IRIE FM as an independent broadcaster. The IRIE FM we know who normally take hardcore social justice warriors onto their station. The station that gave life to cutting edge and stepping razor. The program, the radio station that gave life to the Afri Forum, Una Walters. UN Walters, how are you? So I don't have a problem with the government. Matthew Samuda and Andrew Holness can make as much call as they want to. Pablo, how you doing? Matthew Samuda and Andrew Holness can make as much call as they want to IRIE FM. But when IRIE FM falls on their knee and carry out a request from State Arlene Foster, my problem is with a broadcaster who is there to hold government to account. My problem is with IRIE FM, who should be asking Samuda and the government to provide clarity and Amber's assertions or allegations. Because it was the consequences, Pamela Okola, of what Matthew Samuda said in a private in a meeting that they kept the media out of. So my problem is not with the government. The government job, or this current government job, as we have seen it time and time after, is to get in its thin-skinned hissy fit. It is a usual thing for this government. But does every private entity across the country must buckle under the pressure of a thin-skinned government? John Pugh, good evening. So me not have problem with the government. My problem is with IRIE FM head. IRIE FM lead is the problem here. If IRIE FM was owned by the state, if the Jamaican government have shares or partnership in IRIE FM, then I would go after the government. The government can make whatever requests they want. The government can go on with ever kinaki and pium piam 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 them want. But a broadcaster like IRIE FM, who gave a mouthpiece to Muta Baruka, a broadcaster like IRIE FM, who gave mouthpiece to Kabuma Act, a broadcaster who gave life to cutting edge and stepping razor. It cannot be that questioning politicians over their lies and misinformation that we ought to be subjected to undue pressure from government. This Amber issue is not much different to the Miss Curtis issue, where government is taking out their grievance on members of the public. Broadcaster Durant Clark and Clerk of the House. These two issues are not very far from each other. We don't know if Miss Curtis originally planned to retire on the 6th of April, or this disgraceful debacle has hastened her retirement, because for a woman of such integrity, she couldn't allow her good character to be drawn through the mud. She certainly isn't Paula. This is a woman with integrity, grace, and ambition. We're going to read through the article. The union stands with Curtis. The JUTC, let me see that your viewing is there. Hold on. Right. Bear with. JCTU rather joins in demanding House Speaker withdraw reprimand and apologize to retired clerk. The 11 union strong Jamaica Confederation of Trade Union, JCTU, has shown its full support behind former clerk to the House of Parliament, Valerie Curtis, calling for an apology and withdrawal of a letter from Speaker of the House, Juliet Holness, to the now retired clerk, accusing her of gross dereliction of duty. The powerful union group urges the Speaker public condemnation of the former clerk not only tarnish Miss Curtis's distinguished career, but also send a chilling signal to other public servants. Very important. Let me read this paragraph again. The powerful union group argues that the Speaker public condemnation of the former clerk not only tarnishes Miss Curtis's distinguished career, but also send a chilling signal to other public servants. It's imperative that for leaders to be exemplars of respect and adhere to procedural rights, particularly within our legislative body. According to the JCTU, criticism, when necessary, should be constructive and follow due process, especially concerning constitutional mandated positions. The Speaker has fallen well short of this standard, and her public apology ought to be forthcoming without further delay, the union stressed. In a letter to the editor, the JCTU said the accusation of gross negligence, gross dereliction of duty, is tantamount to gross misconduct. That I have always been saying from day one. The union body said that the Labor Relation Code, Section 21, subsection 2, subparagraph B, states that workers should be dismissed for a first breach of discipline. Workers no worker should be dismissed. Sorry. No worker should be dismissed for a first breach of discipline except in the case of gross misconduct. According to the JCTU, the speaker letter suggests dismissal, making it more than inappropriate reprimand. So the JCTU here is saying that this was a dismissal. It wasn't a retirement, because all of us know that in your workplace, even if it's your first offense, and once it's a gross misconduct, it's what is called a summary dismissal. You're going to be dismissed from the organization. And just like I've said from day one, the gross dereliction of duty is tantamount to, in the private sector, gross misconduct, and gross misconduct ends in a dismissal. The question here for Ms. Curtis to answer: were you dismissed or were you retired? Or, Ms. Curtis, were you asked to resign or retire? These are questions for Ms. Curtis to answer. The letter issued to the former clerk was sent to 62 lawmakers of the House, of the lower house, which is a breach of the duty of trust and confidence. In its letter to the newspaper, the JCTU said it has waited patiently for some commensurate response to the numerous commentators denouncing the public scolding by the Speaker of the House to the retired clerk. So because me confused on here, so let me just explain the paragraph in my own word. Them wait patiently, what them base there clear say. Them wait patiently to hear a response from the Labour people them, despite all of the commentators is saying across the media and across the social space and across the country. They've been waiting patiently for something from them. In this regard, resulting from a board meeting and collective stance on the matter, the JCTU support Ms. Curtis' impassioned request for an apology and withdrawal of the letter. Violates due process. The JCTU contend that despite the immaterial point made by the Speaker last Tuesday that the letter was not placed on Ms. Curtis' file, the withdrawal of the letter should be seen as both an apology and a retraction, acknowledging the misstep and restore dignity to Ms. Curtis's name. The Speaker's letter disregard constitutional separation of power, violate due process, and contravene the public service regulation. All right, let me read it. This paragraph is setting out the different violations from Juliet Holness's letter. The Speaker's letter disregard the constitutional separation of power, 1. 2, it violates due process. 3, it contravenes public service relation. 4, it goes against labor relation code and established protocols. The unilateral approach taken here undermines fairness and constitute an abuse of power, the union declared. Unilateral one-upmanship, unilateral Juliet decision alone, Juliet and Juliet decision alone, one-upmanship. That's what unilateral mean on the ground, one-upmanship. The JCTU notes that despite widespread call from trade union leaders, public commentators, parliamentary opposition, and civil society, urging Holness to retract her letter to the former clerk dated 22nd of March 2024 and issue a public apology, the Speaker has remained steadfast in her refusal to do so. This insistence persists despite condemnation and tributes from both Houses of Parliament, including praise for Ms. Curtis' strong work ethic, organizational skill, attention to details, and 20 years of commitment to upholding parliamentary ideals. The March 22nd letter from the Speaker accused the former clerk of gross dereliction of duty and bringing Parliament into disrepute, two extremely grave allegations. However, the JCTU said it is worth nothing that Holness herself praised Curtis for her exceptional service on two occasions after releasing the divisive letter 1 week before Ms. Curtis' retirement on the 26th of March and the other on the 24th of April, the day Parliament reconvened. This apparent contradiction between exceptional service and accusation of dereliction of duty should not be overlooked, the JCTU added. That's the end of the article. And the nation must also make sure, Norman Ferguson, how are you? Patricia Huntington, how are you doing? Evelyn, first time seeing you on the Global Television. Welcome to the Global Television family. Thank you for joining us. So even Miss Curtis as well can take this to the industrial tribunal or as a constitutional position, she may be able to sue in the High Court or the Constitutional Court. I stand to be corrected on that. But certainly, it is Mrs. Curtis that done it. How are you? It is Mrs. Curtis that has been violated by the employer in the employment spheres. Juliet would be the one that pulls the trigger. So yes, Miss Curtis herself also can take action against her employers, because Real Black Woman, how are you? Miss Curtis can also take actions against her employer because she did not receive a fair hearing. So whether it be herself. And I tell you, you see, in the in the employment tribunal or employment dispute, if any of you employer ever do this to you, I'm telling you, you are walking to the bank. It's a fair grant. You are walking to the bank. Miss Curtis have more than one grounds here to sue the government. If she was asked to hand in her resignation or her retirement prior to her ready for exiting JP, then she can go for unfair dismissal, one of the things she could go for. She could also attach a constitutional claim to it. Over here, we would call it a human rights claim. Breach of your fair hearing rights. Another thing that Miss Curtis could sue for, because over here we could sue for that as well, is the duty, the breach of duty of trust and confidence. Now, if Juliet Holness was Miss Curtis's employer and has the power to discipline Miss Curtis, that disciplinary process is between, hello, Lennox, how are you? Lennox Reed. That disciplinary proceedings is between Miss Curtis, her employer, and the HR team. So if Juliet was her manager, it would be Miss Curtis, Juliet Holness, and the HR team. To have circulated the letter to the wider employee body of the legislature is a breach of the duty of trust and confidence by the employer. Both the employer and the employee is under an implied duty of trust and confidence. The circulation of the letter, even before Miss Curtis had knowledge of it, the circulation to the media was also a breach of the duty of trust and confidence. So if this a case here did in England, there would be so much to sue about. And I'm telling you, to avoid a massive payout, the government would want to settle at the earliest stage to avoid the court levying a massive fine at them for the different level of breaches in one letter. The different level of breaches arising from one hissy fit. So Miss Curtis nor the country should not let this go. There is money in this for Miss Curtis. There is mileage in this for the Jamaica Labour Party, for the People's National Party, as well as there is a lesson for the country, RJ, to say that your democracy under this regime is in grave danger. Your democracy at the moment is dancing on ice. A slip can take you out of the ring. the dictatorial behavior of the wholenesses, the constitutional violation of the wholenesses. It's not just that we're making it up. The Constitutional Court has been ruling against wholenesses unconstitutionality from 2015 when he was leader of the opposition. Andrew Holness's unconstitutionality, my camera is blinking red. I don't know why. I'm frozen. Can you hear me? I know I'm frozen, but can you hear me? Hold on, let me see. Can you hear me, people? Give me a signal if you can hear me. Can you release this? Okay, you can hear me, but this me come back now. My camera was blinking red and me freeze. Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Lilith Foster, how are you? Pauline Dixon, how are you doing? So it is a signal to all of us that this government is a danger to our democracy. The signals have been there ever since Andrew Holness was leader of the opposition. My screen freezes again, but you're hearing me, so that's fine. Since Andrew Holness was leader of the opposition, he has been showing to us that he is not a person willing to follow rules. He's not a person that is willing to accept the norms. He has been showing us, even by his actions against members of the Jamaica Labour Party in the Senate when he was leader of the opposition, showed that he will go at any length to make sure he gets what he wants. Maureen Vassell. Look at the debacle unfolding with the parlor situation. All that is showing us is that this government is hell-bent on having things their way, Ron Williams. This government is hell-bent on having things their way. If they have to run raid through the Constitution, if they have to run raid over your legislative process, this government have no problem in doing that. Dry-eyed, and is prepared to challenge the authority of the court, challenge the authority of the Constitution, just to have it their way. Ubuntu, how are you? I don't think we should be waiting for any more signal from this current regime. I don't think we should be waiting for any more signal from this current regime to see the danger that looms over our so-called democracy. We cannot walk blindly into a republic under this government. We cannot walk blindly into a republic under a tyrannical leadership. It is not sensible to do. It will be the death of our democracy. The people of Jamaica need to wake up to what's in front of their eyes. It's in front of us. I don't think all of us are watching. I don't think all of us are aware or awoken to what is really happening to us by our leaders or those who we chose to administer our affair. The people have to take charge of their affairs. Government is not there to look after you. I think it's quite clear to all of us that government are there to continue enrich themselves, the illicit six, and all of the other packagots, those who ram raid through our education budget, those who ram raid through our national healthcare budget, those who ram raid through the budget at the office of the Prime Minister, those who are unable to certify their declaration because they cannot account for their illicitly enrichment. So they are not here for us, you, I, or our interests. I mean, we have at least 6, 7 decades of experience, of our leaders, selfish, one-upmanship, ways of running politics where whichever party is in, it is just about them and not about the people. Until the people become more involved in their politics, until the people from the family to the community stage start becoming more involved and spread that to a national level. The same old are going to exist, you know. Talking alone, now go change it. This is why prayer alone doesn't change things. You have to be active. You have to have plans. You have to have strategies and ways of implementing them. And not just implementing them, but maintaining them. Veteran arrived. This is somebody called Veteran name. Veteran, is here? Are you here, Veteran? The veteran sleeping hours anyway. Nothing in there. They might time after him sleeping hours. So, not now going in our country, people. It has become a playpen. Hog pen, water boat, and push broom politics. But what I want to see the People's National Party do in closing is use social media to communicate more and update the nation more. Forget those who call themselves social media, who mainstream media, who really watch them or listen to them anymore, who really have the time for them long time people that were people don't even talk about anymore. You know what I mean? Use social media, communicate with the people, have a weekly or a fortnightly press conference, updating the people on the things that the People's National Party is doing to protect their democracy, to protect their constitution, and to protect their rights. Communication is hugely important in all walks of life. And what I would want to see No, David, them are better sleeping hours. What I want to see is more communication to the nation from People's National Party. If you let this momentum dies, you have a harder fight at the next general election. And to you, the Jamaica Labour Party, if you let this Speaker Clark roar continues to the next general election, it will be hugely damaging for the Jamaica Labour Party at the next general election, because the nation isn't having it. The People's National Party isn't having it. Members of civil society isn't having it. And certainly, those of us in the journalistic and commentary on social media is not having it. This issue, I can tell you from tonight, will be one of the most damaging things to the Jamaica Labour Party at the next general election. Thank you all for being here tonight on The People's Point of View. The pastor them I get wicked, I know you want to so. I'm hoping the wickedness of the pastors will start wake up some of the people. Stacy, how are you? And if you're not following me on Facebook, please also do follow me on Facebook, because that's where I do postings a lot of the time. Producer Way Global TV and Facebook. Beulah, how are you? So please also follow me on Facebook as well. So when any article comes out, which is good information and important read or things that we ought to know, is where I would post such things as well. So go over to my Facebook page and follow me over there. But thank you all very much for your continuous support on the Global Television Group. Join us back here tomorrow for your At a Glance program, where we will continue to look at the issues plaguing our country and continue to advise those deaf-eared politicians that said to be at the helm of what we call our beloved Jamaica, which we don't own, Mavis Forbes. So thank you all very much, and good night from Global Television.